All right, I'm ready to get started. First things first, we're going to go over our questions. Isabella Trim and Keelan, you have not turned in your questions yet for chapters 11, 12, 11, 10, 11, and 12. Make sure you get those done, please. Some of you are going to be losing points on those questions because you didn't restate your question or you forgot your capital letter and stuff. I feel like some of you guys rushed right through those questions, and I don't know why. But we're just going to go over them really quickly before we start reading. So number 1, who pulled over on the side of the road and gave Bud food and a ride? Real name and nickname. So you needed to restate the question. So you should have said the man that pulled over on the side of the road was Mr. Lewis. His nickname is Lefty Lewis. Okay, that would have been what you said. 2, what food did Mr. Lewis give Bud? He gave him a bologna sandwich with mustard and a red pop is what he gave him. Where did Mr. Lewis take Bud after they dropped off the blood? He took them to his daughter's house, which was Mrs. Sleets. So he took them to the Sleets residence. What did everyone at the Sleets house do before they ate food? They prayed. That is what everyone did before they ate food. They all prayed. Why was Bud having a hard time during the breakfast meal? He was having a hard time because everyone was chit-chatting, and normally he's not allowed to eat or not allowed to talk while eating. So he was like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? He also was having a hard time deciding how much food to take. So he didn't want to be like a pig. So you could have put either of those answers. But it said after what? Landon, I don't know what you're saying. It said, what did everyone at the Sleets house do before they ate food? It definitely says before. I'm looking at it right now. What? Bud got his first pairs of what from Miss Sleet? He got his first pairs of trousers, which would be long pants, because her son had outgrown them. What does Mr. Lewis do for a living? He is a railroad pullman, so he takes the bags from people and he puts them on the train for people. So he's a railroad pullman. And then he's also like a blood delivery guy. So he's got 2 jobs. What is a Packard? Remember, we talked about a Packard. It's a big, fancy car. So Mr. Lewis was talking about Herman E. Calloway's Packard. Remember, Bud said it looked like it was as big as a boat. It's a big, fancy car. Not everyone has a Packard. Why couldn't Bud let Mr. Lewis and Herman E. Calloway talk? Obviously, he couldn't let him talk because Herman E. Calloway has no idea who Bud even is. And if Mr. Lewis would find out he was lying, you could have said anything along those lines. Basically, they would have both found out he was lying. Mr. Lewis definitely would have been mad, but he couldn't let him speak. And 10, what did Bud say at the end of chapter 12 to his dad, Herman E. Calloway, while he was pointing at him? He pointed at him and said, I know it's you. All right. Are there any questions on any of those questions? Anyone have any questions on 1 through 10? I just wanted to do a quick review. Tell me in the chat, yes, no, questions, no, maybe so. Apparently none of you want me to see you today. There's only a few with your video on. No? Logan's good? I will get those graded today probably. I just haven't had time yet. Because, it's just yesterday. So I have not graded them yet, but I'm planning on getting them graded this afternoon. So be on the lookout for your grade. Also, in case you forgot, remember, reading RTI grades do not go straight into your reading grade. They go in at the end. So Mrs. Kneifel keeps this nice big spreadsheet of all your guys' grades. And remember, they're average. You get 2 grades. So we've had a lot of grades from this book just because it's such a big book. So hopefully your guys' reading RTI grades will be good. The end of the 9 weeks is on December 18th, in case you were wondering. So it's a month away from today. But remember, these reading RTI grades can definitely affect you. So you need to make sure you're doing your personal best on your reading RTI grades. I hope you guys enjoyed the ReadWorks from this week, Friday. Also, I thought it was a good one about sleep because it shows the importance of sleep. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I liked that one. All right, we're going to start reading chapter 13, my friends. Oh, snap. Mrs. Kneifel's a little bit stuffed up this morning, so I'm sorry. I sound a little funny. All right.
Michael, before we start, I have to tell you something.
Okay.
I might miss either math or TI reading class because yesterday I was having some problems with my stomach and I had to go to the emergency room last night. So I have a follow-up checkup appointment, and my mom said she doesn't know if they're going to be able to get me in, but I might be missing math RTI or reading class.
Okay, well, it'll be recorded. So if you miss something, just watch the recording whenever you feel up to doing it or whenever you have time, okay?
Okay,
I hope you're okay, Angelina.
thanks.
All right. So chapter 13, remember, he's just accusing Mr. Hermione Calloway, saying, I know it's you. So we're about to see how Hermione Calloway reacts to this kid. Remember, Hermione Calloway's pretty old, right? So if this was, Bud described how old he's looking and stuff. So if it is his dad, like, oh snap, he's pretty old to have a kid. And remember, don't forget, you should be naming your chapters as we finish them, because that will be due when we finish the book, which obviously isn't going to be for like another week or two ish. Actually, we still got a lot to go. All right, chapter 13. The circle of the men got very quiet. The younger guys looked like they wanted to laugh, but were afraid to. And the Jimmy guy and the man who must be my father were looking at me the way grown-ups do when they're getting ready to give you some bad news, or when they're trying to decide which hand they're going to smack you upside the head with. Finally, Jimmy snapped his fingers and said, Hold on now. Is your name Bud? He knew my name. I said, Yes, sir. Jimmy said, Herman, don't you see this has something to do with that crazy telegram you got this morning? He looked at me. Are you sure you're from Flint, Bud? Yes, sir, that's right. That's right where I'm from. Hermione Calloway said, What in the Sam Hill is going on here? First off, don't you come in here accusing folks of being your father. Second off, where is your mother? Shucks. He said it like you didn't already know. I said, She's dead, sir. She died 4 years ago. Hermione Calloway said, I'm truly sorry to hear that, but it's obvious that you are a disturbed young man and you don't have a clue who your father is. You just tell us who's looking after you now, and we'll get you sent back to wherever it is you belong. I belong with you now, sir. So he's just rolling up. He's like, Yep, I'm with you now, bud. Like, oh my goodness. He's got some guts. Like, he's going into a circle of grown men, and he's like, Yep, I belong with you. Like, you don't know that. Like, we don't know that. Remember, he saw some flyers and he's like, yeah, this is my dad. Like, okay. Oh, cracks me up. Hermione Calloway said, now you look here. Jimmy said, hold on, Herman. He seems a lot nicer than this Calloway guy, but you got to understand, Mr. Calloway here can't be your daddy. No how, no way. I don't know what gave you that idea, but whatever. We've got to get you back home. Someone in Flint's got to be worried sick about you. I said, no, sir. I don't have nobody left in Flint. That's why I came all the way here. He said, no one at all. I said, no, sir. He said, no brothers. No, sir. No sisters. No, sir. What about an auntie? No, sir. No grandma? No, sir. Shucks. It looks like this guy was going over my whole family tree, but he whistled and said, so were you living in an orphanage? Uh-oh. I had to be careful now how I answered this one. One wrong answer, and I could tell these guys are ready to give me up to the cops or give me a one-way ticket back to the home. I said, well, sir, I had some problems with some of the folks that were supposed to be looking after me. And after I hid their shotgun and poured water all over Todd Almos, I busted out of the shed and had to go on the lam. And then I thought about time I came and met my father, because it's been... He raised his hand up to stop me. That's fine, son. But just answer what I ask you. What orphanage were you in? Well, sir, I used to be in a home. And then I wasn't. And then I was with some people that were kind of mean. And then I tried to find Miss Hill. But she moved all the way back to Chicago. And that was too far of a walk. So he raised his hand up again to shut me up. Hold on, bud. Do me a favor. Go wait by that door for a minute. He pointed to the side of the stage. So each time, the adults are asking him a question, he's giving them way too much information. He's like, okay, so, how'd you get here? He's like, blah, 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 blah. Like, he asked you one question. You're giving him way too much answer. Like, they don't know what home you were at. They don't know who the Todds, the Amoses were. They don't know who Miss Hill is. And he's giving them all this information. So the adults are probably like, what the heck is going on for real? I walked over and waited to see what was going to happen. I tried pushing the door open a little bit in case I had to make a quick escape, but it was jammed tight. I'd have to lead out the same door I came in. The man named Jimmy and the guy who had to be my daddy started whispering. After a while, Hermione Calloway raised his arm and said, hey, but don't forget, this is your little red wagon. You pull it if you want it. Jimmy said, fair enough. He waved me back on stage, but he said, you look like you might be a little hungry. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're all done rehearsing, and we're about to head over to Sweet Pea. You're invited to come along under one condition. What, sir? Once you get something in your belly, you've got to be straight with me. You've got some explaining to do. We'll feed you, but you got to tell us the truth. Do we have a deal? He stuck out his hand for me to shake, but I wanted to know what I was getting myself into. What's the Sweet Pea, sir? Best restaurant in Grand Rapids. Is it a deal? I don't know how grown-ups can always tell I'm always so doggone hungry, but I sure wasn't going to turn around getting my very first real restaurant food. I grabbed his hand and made sure I gave it a hard squeeze like Mama told me to do. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. He smiled. No problem. So Bud's 10 years old and he's never been in a restaurant. Remember, this is the Great Depression. His mom definitely didn't have money for them to be in a restaurant, so he's about to go to a restaurant for the first time. And how can folks always tell he's so hungry? Because he's so stinking skinny. So this man, Jimmy, somehow he's in the band with Hermione Calloway somehow. So somehow he's connected to Hermione Calloway, and he's like, all right, I'm going to feed you, but then you got to tell me the truth. And little did he know, Bud's telling him the truth. The truth doesn't really make much sense. Hermione Calloway said, well, James, like I said, if he's going to do some explaining, it's got to be to you. I don't need to listen to this scramps nonsense while I'm trying to digest my supper. He stuck a pipe that wasn't lit in his mouth and walked off stage. Shucks, if my father had to be so doggone old, I was starting to wish Lefty Lewis or this Jimmy guy were him. Hermione Calloway seemed like he was going to be hard to get along with. The horn player said, little man, my name is Jimmy Wesley. You can call me Mr. Jimmy. Yes, sir. He pointed to the younger man. The drummer there, that's Doug, the tug, tenant. The sax man is Harrison Eddie, steady, Patrick. The saxophone player said, oh, man, it's not Eddie steady, it's steady Eddie, Patrick. Jimmy said, uh-oh. And the trombone, we have Chug, Doo-Doo, Bug, Cross, and the palest member of the band on piano is Roy, Dirty Deed Breed. So he's saying their band names, okay? So sometimes musicians go by different names, He shook his head again and said, Lord knows why these young musicians can't leave their perfectly good names their mothers gave them alone, but for some reason they can't. Anyway, fellas, this here is Bud. What was your last name, Bud? Caldwell, sir. This here's Bud Caldwell. He's going to be our guest over at the Sweet Pea for dinner. Y'all say hello to this little man and make sure make him feel comfortable. The thug said, what's the word, Bud? Dirty Deed said, how you doing? Doo-Doo Bug said, welcome, little stuff. Steady Eddie said, good to meet you, my man. I said, pleased to meet you. Jamie told them, all right, he'll write it over with you four, and me and Herm will meet you there. The sax man, Steady Eddie, said, all right, Mr. Jimmy, we'll finish loading up. The Jimmy guy went out the front door. The sax man told me, come on, little man. If Mr. Jimmy's going to spring for your supper, the least you can do is help load the car. Grab that case over there and put it in the trunk of the Buick out back. He pointed to a long, skinny, black suitcase that had a leather handle on the top of it and said, be careful there. That's my bread and butter in there. So, the saxophone man was like, yeah, why don't you help us load up the trunk? Okay, help us do some work. And he's saying it's his bread and butter because inside the case, it's an instrument case. So inside the case would be his saxophone, and his saxophone is how he makes money. So that's why he's calling it his bread and butter, in case you're wondering what that meant. I must have looked confused because he told me that's my horn, my axe, my saxophone, the thing I make all my money with. So don't get butterfingers and drop it. I said, oh, yes, sir. The trombone man, Doo-Doo Bug, said, one thing you're going to have to drop, though, is all that sir stuff. The only folks around here old enough for you to be calling them sir are Mr. Jimmy and, he winked, your long-lost dear old daddy. So he's winking because he thinks it's silly. I don't know why you can't hear me. I'm talking pretty loud. Is anyone else not hearing me? I feel like I'm yelling. Make sure you have some good reception, Hannah.
I can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay. The whole band busted a gut laugh, and the thug said, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, my ma'am. I think the only reason Mr. C is denying he's your daddy is because you went and hurt his feelings. How? I didn't do nothing to him. There it is. That's just what I mean. Here you two are getting together for the first time, and you didn't show the man no love. He looked over at Doo-Doo Bug. Bud, you didn't Bud, did you see any love being passed from this? Bug, did you see any love being passed from this boy to his daddy? Doo-doo Bug said, you leave me out of your nonsense. The thug said, shoot, man, seems like you should give the man some props. Seems to me like you shouldn't give the man a whole lot of affection. You see, I know Mr. C better than most folks, and I know that beneath that cold-hearted, evil, wicked, nasty, mean, the doo-doo bug said, don't forget Cheap. Cheap's got to be in there somewhere. So that's how they're describing Hermione Calloway. They're describing him as cold-hearted, evil, wicked, nasty, mean, and cheap. The thug said, you know, Cheap's right up high on the list, but what I was saying, beneath all that festering nastiness is a tender, kind, loving human being. Why, I bet you dollar to no nuts that he's outside right now sitting in that Packard sobbing openly about how you shunned him. I'm going to let you know right now, these band members are totally pulling his chain. Hermione Calloway is not sobbing in his Packard right now, which is his car, remember. They're trying to, pull Bud's leg. When you get to the sweet pea, rush right up on him and give him a big hug. Yell out, Daddy, then plant a big, juicy kiss right on top of his shiny, bald head. Shoot, you do that, and you'll be in his will so quick your head will spin. I put this tug guy on my list of people not to pay no mind to. Hermione Calloway seems like the kind of person that would rather get bit in the behind by a snaggletooth mule than had anybody give him a kiss. Steady Eddie said, let's not get the little man killed before he gets a chance to eat. Thug, son, I hope you've got sense enough to let what he's telling you to go in one ear and find the nearest exit. You just steer clear of Mr. C for a while. He's not someone you want to toy with. And for God's sakes, whatever you do, don't call him Daddy or Papa or anything that's going to give anyone the idea that you two are kin. You hear? These guys really thought I was dumb. I said, yes, sir. But isn't it just like my luck to come clean across the state to find my daddy and he turns out to be a mean old coot? I slapped my hand over my mouth. I knew better than to say something like that out loud. It just fell out of my mouth before I could swallow it down. This was Bud Caldwell's rules and things to having a funner life and making a better liar out of yourself, number 63. Rules and things, number 63. Never, ever say something bad about someone you don't know, especially when you're around a bunch of strangers. You can never tell who might be kin to that person or who might be a lip-flapping, big-mouthed spy. Sure enough, the drummer, the thug guy, started acting like he was writing stuff down on a piece of pretend paper. He said, let's see, what was that, mean old coot or old mean coot? Shoot, baby, if I drop some info like this on Mr. C, I might be able to stay in this band longer than the last 3 drummers did. You see, kid, you ain't the only one trying to get on Mr. C's good side. This is the best drumming gig in the state, and I need to hang on to it as long as I can. I wasn't sure if this drummer guy was really a dirty dog or if he was just a big teaser. Whichever way, I'd have to work real hard on remembering rules and things, number 68. Or was it 63? Steady Eddie said, Thug, you're going to have to lay off this kid's chop. The little man's got problems enough, and he sure don't need to have you meddling with him. That just means like messing with him. Let's get the car loaded. Me and, what was your name again, kid? Bud, not Buddy, sir. Just Bud, not Buddy. Right, me and Bud, not Buddy, are too dang hungry to hear any more of your lip. Of all the Dusky Devastators or the Depression or the Nimba Nights, Steady Eddie was my favorite. We loaded a bunch of funny-shaped black cases into the trunk of a big old black Buick, then climbed in. I got in the back seat and sat between Dirty Deed and Steady Eddie with my suitcase on my lap. Doo-doo Bug got behind the steering wheel and the thug got in beside him. So remember, these funny-shaped black suitcases, they're funny-shaped because they're instrument cases. I don't know if you've ever seen an instrument case, but they're not like a normal box suitcase. You got to like put an instrument in it. So that's why he's like, okay, these are really funny shaped suitcases, but it's because he doesn't understand that they're not suitcases, that they're instrument cases. The thug said, so, buddy, I'm going to come right out and ask what's on everyone else's mind. How'd you find out Mr. C was your daddy? My mother let me know. The said, I ain't trying to be funny, and I never play the dozens on no one, but let me ask you, was your mama, how can I put it, was your mama as old as sand when she had you? Steady Eddie said, man, leave the kid alone. You got no call to go prying into his life. I never minded talking about my mama, so I told the thug, no, sir, yes, sir, she was pretty old when I was born. The thug said, shoot, I knew she had to be either old or crazy to have anything to do with that man. How old was she? 80? Was she blind? I said, no, sir, she was old, but her eyes didn't go bad yet. She was 20 when I was born, and she was 26 when she died. Okay, 20 is not old, okay, not old at all. But sometimes kids have a hard time understanding age. Most of you will probably get it, but sometimes kids have a hard time understanding age. Like to a 5-year-old, 20 seems really stinking old, right? So he's like, yeah, she was old, but really she wasn't old. The news always kills any conversation having with grown-ups. The Dusty Devastators got as quiet as some mice in bedroom got as quiet as some mice with bedroom slippers on. The only sound you could hear for a second was the key cling, clang, clinging up against the metal dashboard as Doo-Doo Bug turned the car into the front of the little house that had a sign saying the Sweet Pea on it. The thug said, things is hard all over, ain't they? The steady man said, you all right, little man. You're a tough little nut. I like that. Most folks your age would be bawling their eyes out if they got teased as hard as that fool drummer was teasing you. Buddy, you ain't even close to crying, are you? I said, no, sir. I don't know why, but my eyes don't cry no more. Steady Eddie said, I like that. My eyes don't cry no more. You mind if I borrow that? That sounds like a great name for a song. I said, no, sir. I don't mind at all. He reached over and rubbed his hand over my head and said, yeah, you're all right, little fella. And don't you worry none too much about the thug. Mr. C changes drummers the way most folks change their drawers. What you see in the front seat is a man on borrowed time. Thug said, oh, man, did you hear that? Doo-Doo Bug cut off the car and said, all right, gentlemen, that's enough. Let's go stuff our craws. All right, so they're about to roll up into this restaurant. Ooh, the Sweet Pea. Anyways, how's everyone feeling about this book? Like, I'm just dying to know what's going to happen next. I just love this book so much. So good. I think I'm actually going to start reading chapter 14. I don't think you guys are going to have any homework today. So if you're not listening on here right now, you better listen before that thing starts because we're definitely missing like 2 or 3 people, I think. But I'm just going to start reading chapter 14 so we can continue on. No homework for reading RTI today. Unless you haven't already done your homework from yesterday, then you better do that. When we got into the restaurant, I could see that it was someone's living room and that they'd set about 10 card tables and some folding chairs in. Every table but one was filled, and there were 5 or 6 people standing in the doorway waiting to sit down. We said, excuse me, and walked right past. Then the smell of the place got in my nose, and I could tell why folks were lining up to get in. I closed my eyes and took a big snort of air. It was like someone took an old pot and poured about 100 gallons of hot apple cider and 100 gallons of hot coffee into it. Then stirred 8 or 9 sweet potato pies, crust and all, into that, and let 6 big steamy meatloafs float on top of that. Then threw in a couple of handfuls of smashed potatoes, then boiled the whole thing on hot. This must be exactly how heaven smells. So remember, he's never been in a restaurant before, and he's smelling all the smells, and he's like, oh my gosh, I need this in my life. He also said the restaurant looks like it's in someone's house. So remember, Great Depression. You need to mute yourself. So someone's probably a good cook, so they're just making a restaurant in their house. Obviously, in today's world, we can't do that because the health department and all that stuff. But in 1936, yeah, you could set up some card tables, feed people in your house, no big deal. I could tell by the way Mr. Jimmy was telling the truth when he said this was the best restaurant in Grand Rapids. Shucks, I'd never even eaten one in 4, but I'd say this is the best restaurant in the world. I opened my eyes because the smell was starting to make me dizzy. On the other side of the room, Hermione Calloway was sitting at a table with Mr. Jimmy and a woman. Steady Eddie pointed at the only empty table, one that had a sign, reserved, NBC on the top of it, and said, that's where we're at, over there, bud. NBC stands for Nobody But Calloway. Mr. C changes the name of the band so much that no one can keep up with the new names, so they call us NBC so they don't have to change the sign. So this band comes to the restaurant so much, they have their own tables reserved for them. Nobody but Calloway. So Hermione Calloway, nobody can sit there but his band. So they must go there a lot. Before I could sit down with them, Mr. Jimmy saw us and said, hey, here they are, and pointed at me and waved for me to come over to their table. Shucks, I'd rather sit with the band than Hermione Calloway. It would be hard to have a good time eating if you looked up and saw him every time you took a bite. The thug said, remember what I said? Pointed at the top of his head and acted like he was smacking some kisses. I walked over to the other table. Mr. Jimmy said, bud, This here's Miss Thomas. She's our vocal stylist. What do you think a vocal stylist is? Tell me in the chat. What do you think a vocal stylist is? What do we think a vocal stylist is? It has nothing to do with hair. A vocal. Yeah, Gage. She's a singer. Good job. So the vocal stylist, that means she's the singer of this band. So we are going to stop there. You do not have any reading RTI homework tonight, so take a break on reading RTI homework. We will pick up with chapter 14 tomorrow. I just love this book so much. I will see you guys in Math RTI in about 10 minutes. If you're in my Math RTI, if you're not in my Math RTI, I'll see you in reading class.
Bye.
Bye, guys. See you in a little bit.